You could feel it from the very first moment. This wasn't going to be just another interview. As Tom Bauer sat down to discuss his explosive new book, Betrayal, the atmosphere was already charged. The headlines had been building for days, and at the center of it all was one stunning claim, an alleged private remark from Queen Camilla herself. According to Bauer, Camilla reportedly told a close friend that Meghan Markle had been brainwashing Prince Harry. A statement like that doesn't just raise eyebrows. It shakes the entire narrative surrounding one of the most talked-about couples in the world. But even before the book officially hit shelves, Harry and Meghan had already fired back, dismissing the claims as nothing more than a deranged conspiracy. Still, Bauer remained completely unfazed. In fact, he almost welcomed the backlash. They've helped push the book to #1, he noted calmly, pointing out the irony. For him, criticism from the Sussexes isn't unexpected, it's predictable. According to Bauer, any form of scrutiny directed at them is immediately labeled as malicious or false. But this time, he insists, the story is different. He stands firmly behind his reporting. Bauer emphasizes that his claims are not speculation or rumor, but based on credible sourcing. Information, he says, comes directly from someone who heard the alleged remark firsthand. It's well-sourced, he explains, making it clear that this isn't just another sensational headline, but part of a much deeper investigation into what's really been happening behind palace walls. And that's where things start to get even more intense. The conversation quickly shifts from that one quote to the broader dynamic between Harry and Meghan, a relationship that has been under scrutiny for years. There's a growing belief, echoed in Bauer's book, that Harry's transformation over the past decade hasn't been accidental. Once seen as the fun-loving, rebellious prince with a strong connection to both his family and the public, Harry is now often portrayed as something entirely different, more isolated, more defensive, and increasingly distant from his roots. Bauer suggests that this shift didn't happen overnight. Instead, he paints a picture of a gradual change, one shaped by emotional vulnerability, personal struggles, and ultimately, the influence of someone who entered his life at exactly the right moment. But here's where the story becomes more complex. It's not just about influence, it's about timing. Harry, by Bauer's account, was in a fragile place long before Meghan came along. The loss of his mother, the pressures of royal life, and his own battles with mental health had already left him searching for stability and support. And when Meghan entered the picture, she offered exactly that. Or at least, that's how it appeared in the beginning. To Harry, she wasn't just a partner. She was a sense of safety, a way out, someone who understood him when others didn't. But according to Bauer, what started as comfort may have evolved into something far more complicated and far more controversial. Because if his claims are true, then this isn't just a love story gone wrong. It's a story about influence, power, and the unraveling of one of the most important relationships within the modern royal family. And this is only the beginning. As the interview moves forward, the conversation begins to peel back even more layers, and what emerges is a far more complicated picture of how this relationship may have evolved behind closed doors. According to Tom Bauer, concerns about Meghan Markle didn't suddenly appear after the wedding. They were there long before it. In fact, he suggests that doubts had already started forming within the royal circle well before she officially became part of the family. And one of the key figures who reportedly saw it coming early? Prince William. Bauer reveals that William had reservations from the very beginning. While the public was watching what seemed like a modern fairy tale unfolding, insiders were quietly questioning whether Meghan would truly adapt to royal life, or if she even intended to. Because royal life isn't just about titles, attention, or influence. It comes with strict expectations, responsibilities, and a level of discipline that few outsiders fully understand. According to Bauer, Meghan struggled with that structure. He describes how a senior and highly respected figure within the establishment was assigned to help guide her, essentially to prepare her for the duties, traditions, and expectations that come with being part of the monarchy. But instead of embracing that guidance, Meghan reportedly resisted it. The feedback that made its way back to the palace was concerning. She wasn't interested in falling into line. That phrase alone speaks volumes, because in an institution built on tradition and hierarchy, refusing to adapt doesn't just create tension, it creates conflict. And according to Bauer, that conflict didn't stay behind palace doors for long. It began to grow. At the same time, Harry's role in all of this becomes impossible to ignore. While Meghan may have challenged the system, Bauer suggests that Harry played a key role in amplifying those challenges. He didn't just support her. He adopted her grievances, repeated them, and in many cases, escalated them. This, Bauer argues, is what ultimately led to the breaking point. The departure, the interviews, the public accusations, all of it. And yet, there's another side to this story that makes it even more complicated. Because while Bauer is critical of Meghan's influence, he doesn't paint Harry as simply a victim. Instead, he presents him as someone who was already struggling long before Meghan entered the picture. By his account, Harry wasn't just searching for love, he was searching for stability. After years of emotional turmoil, personal loss, and intense public scrutiny, he was vulnerable. And that vulnerability, Bauer suggests, made him more susceptible to someone who could offer comfort, reassurance, and a sense of control. In Meghan, he found exactly that, at least in the beginning. But what started as support may have slowly shifted into something else, something that not everyone around him trusted. And as those concerns grew, so did the distance between Harry and the rest of his family. The once close bond between Harry, William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, began to fracture. What had once looked like a united front, a trio often seen laughing, working together, and supporting one another, started to fall apart. And according to Bauer, that wasn't a coincidence. It was the result of mounting tensions, unresolved conflicts, and a relationship dynamic that was changing faster than anyone could control. Because sometimes, the biggest shifts don't happen all at once. They happen slowly, quietly, until one day, everything is different. And by the time people realize it, it's already too late. As the discussion continues, the focus shifts to something even more revealing. Not just what happened inside the royal family, but why everything escalated so quickly once Meghan Markle officially became part of the institution. Because according to Tom Bauer, the turning point may have come much earlier than most people think. In fact, he suggests that even during the wedding itself, there were signs of a bigger plan already in motion. A plan that didn't necessarily revolve around staying within the royal system, but eventually stepping outside of it. And when you look back at that moment, it starts to make sense. The global attention, the Hollywood connections, the carefully curated image. It wasn't just a royal wedding. It was a worldwide spectacle. Bauer argues that this wasn't accidental. He believes Meghan was already thinking ahead, positioning herself for a future where she could leverage her royal status on a global stage. And for a while, that plan seemed to work perfectly. After stepping away from royal duties, Prince Harry and Meghan quickly secured massive deals. Streaming platforms, media companies, high-profile interviews. It looked like they were about to build an entirely new empire. There was the explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey. There were the Netflix projects, the memoirs, the podcasts. Everything pointed toward one goal: control the narrative and monetize their story. At first, the public was curious, even supportive. But over time, that curiosity started to shift. Because instead of moving forward, much of their content kept circling back to the same topic, the royal family, the same grievances, the same accusations. And according to Bauer, that's where the strategy began to unravel. Because there's a limit to how long you can build momentum on controversy alone. Eventually, people start asking different questions. What's next? What's the long-term vision? And more importantly, what's the purpose beyond the headlines? Bauer's argument is clear. The couple expected to stay at the top indefinitely, but instead, they began facing a steady decline in both influence and public support. The projects didn't perform the way many had anticipated. The excitement faded, and the narrative that once felt powerful started to feel repetitive. That's when the tone shifted, from confidence to pressure. Because maintaining a global brand isn't just about making noise. It's about sustaining value. And according to the book, that's exactly where things started to fall apart. Financial pressure began creeping in. Deals ended. Opportunities became less certain. And suddenly, the same independence they had fought for started to look a lot more complicated. Because walking away from the royal family meant losing more than just titles. It meant losing a built-in system of relevance, structure, and global recognition. And rebuilding that from scratch? That's not easy. Not even for two of the most talked about figures in the world. Which brings us to the most critical question raised in this part of the discussion. Was leaving the royal family truly a long-term strategy? Or was it a short-term move that created long-term consequences? Because if Bauer is right, what we're witnessing now isn't just controversy. It's the result of a plan that worked in the beginning, but wasn't built to last. And when that happens, the biggest challenge isn't getting attention. It's figuring out how to keep it, without the very system you once left behind. At this point in the conversation, things take a sharper turn, because now the focus isn't just on the past decisions made by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It's about what happens next, and more importantly, what consequences may still be coming. One of the biggest questions raised is whether the royal family will eventually take a much stronger stance, because up until now, despite everything that's been said publicly, interviews, books, documentaries, the response from the monarchy has been relatively restrained. But according to Tom Bauer, that patience may not last forever. In fact, there's growing speculation that if the situation continues, more serious actions could be taken, especially when it comes to titles. The comparison being made here is to Prince Andrew, who saw his royal status significantly reduced after controversy. And that raises a powerful possibility. If it happened once, could it happen again? Because from the perspective of many critics, there's a clear contradiction. On one hand, Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, publicly distancing themselves from the institution. But on the other hand, they continue to use their royal titles while building personal brands and business ventures. And that contradiction doesn't sit well with everyone, especially those who believe royal titles should come with responsibility, not just recognition. The host pushes this idea further, suggesting that the monarchy may eventually reach a point where it has to draw a line. A simple but powerful one. You're either in or you're out. No middle ground. Because as long as that line remains blurred, the situation continues to create tension, not just within the family, but also among the public. Now, another layer to this is the future of leadership within the royal family. Because while King Charles III is currently on the throne, many believe the real shift will happen when the next generation takes over. Specifically, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. And according to Bauer, their approach could be very different. Less tolerant, more decisive, because from their perspective, the damage has already been done, publicly and repeatedly. And rebuilding trust after that? That's not something that happens easily. Which brings us to another critical point raised in this part, the issue of credibility. Because once trust is broken, whether within a family or in the public eye, it becomes incredibly difficult to restore. Every new statement gets questioned, every new move gets analyzed, and every attempt at rebuilding an image faces skepticism. That's the reality Harry and Meghan are dealing with right now. And it's not just about public opinion, it's about long-term positioning. Because in a world where reputation is everything, losing credibility can be more damaging than losing popularity. You can recover from being disliked, but recovering from being doubted? That's much harder. And as this discussion suggests, the royal family is now facing a situation where it must balance two things: protecting its image, while also handling internal conflict that continues to play out on a global stage. So the question becomes, will the monarchy continue to stay silent and hope the situation fades? Or will it eventually take decisive action to protect its future? Because one thing is becoming increasingly clear. This isn't just a family dispute anymore. It's a long-term battle over reputation, legacy, and control. And the outcome of that battle could reshape the future of the royal family for years to come. As the conversation begins to wrap up, one thing becomes crystal clear. This isn't just a temporary controversy. This is a defining moment, not just for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but for the entire future of the monarchy itself. Because what we're witnessing right now is something much deeper than headlines or viral interviews. It's a clash between tradition and modern ambition, between duty and personal branding. And according to Tom Bauer, the consequences of that clash are already unfolding. He makes it clear, the royal family has faced crises before, major ones, scandals, conflicts, public backlash, and yet it has always survived. Why? Because
like a
at
graveyard
its
of
core,
abandoned
the monarchy
ambitions,
represents
and
something
Hollywood has
bigger than
noticed.
individuals.
What particularly infuriates
Built on
Netflix,
continuity,
according to
on
those familiar
structure,
with the
on the
situation.
idea
Meghan
that
Markle
no
and
single
Prince
person
Harry are
is greater than the institution itself. But this time feels different, because the challenge isn't just coming from outside critics. It's coming from within, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Now, the discussion shifts toward a broader issue: leadership, because in times of crisis, everything depends on who is guiding the ship. And while King Charles III is currently at the helm, there are growing concerns about whether the right decisions are being made at the right time, not out of weakness, but out of hesitation. Because history has shown that delaying tough decisions often makes problems worse, not better. And that's exactly the concern being raised here, that by trying to keep peace, the monarchy may be allowing deeper fractures to form. But then comes the bigger question: what happens next? Because no crisis lasts forever. Eventually, there's a turning point, a moment where things either stabilize or completely shift direction. And many believe that moment will come with the next generation, when Prince William takes on a more dominant leadership role alongside Catherine, Princess of Wales, a leadership style that is expected to be more firm, more structured,